I want you to picture two people. Same salary, same city, same age. The first person has 300 contacts in their phone. They go to every birthday dinner, every group trip, every happy hour after work. Their calendar is full. Their weekends are booked. They split checks they can't afford. They buy rounds to keep up appearances. They say yes to every invitation because saying no feels like social suicide. At the end of the year, they check their bank account and can't figure out where $9,000 went. They Google, "Why am I always broke?" at 1 a.m. and fall asleep stressed. The second person has maybe 4 people they talk to. Their phone is quiet. Their weekends are open. They cook at home. They invest the difference. At the end of the year, they have an emergency fund, a portfolio that's growing, and a nervous system that actually lets them sleep. Nobody threw them a party, nobody called them popular, but they are building something that nobody in the first-person circle can see yet. Same income, one person is bleeding money through their social life, the other is compounding wealth in silence. This is not a video about loneliness. This is a video about the hidden financial system behind your social circle and why the people who cut everyone off usually understand something about money, energy, and freedom that the rest of the world hasn't figured out yet. If you've ever felt like something was off about the way people expect you to spend, stay, and show up, subscribe right now, because over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how that system works and why opting out might be the most profitable decision you ever make. Every relationship in your life costs you twice. The first cost is obvious. It's the money. The dinners you didn't pick, the vacations you couldn't really afford, the wedding gifts, the baby showers, the let's grab drinks that somehow turns into a $90 tab every single time, the Ubers, the outfits you bought because you couldn't wear the same thing twice around the same people, the subscription to the lifestyle that your friend group silently enforces. The average American spends over $700 a year just on gifts for other people. That doesn't include the dinners, the trips, the gas, the drinks, the "I'll Venmo you later" that never comes. When you actually total up the financial cost of maintaining a large social circle, the number is uncomfortable. For some people, it's the difference between investing and not investing, between building an emergency fund and living paycheck to paycheck, between financial progress and financial theater. But here's the part nobody talks about: the second cost. The second cost is emotional, and it's almost always larger than the first. It's the text thread that drains you before you even open it, the friend who only calls when they need something, the coworker who turns every lunch into a gossip session that leaves you feeling heavy, the family member who measures your love by how much you spend at Christmas, the social obligation that eats your Saturday when your body was begging for rest. Psychologists call this emotional labor, and it has a direct line to your financial behavior. When your emotional bandwidth is consumed by other people's chaos, you don't have the capacity to make good decisions about your own money. You impulse spend because you're drained. You avoid your budget because you're overwhelmed. You say yes to expenses you can't afford because you don't have the energy to say no. The people who cut everyone off, they eliminated both costs simultaneously, not because they're cold, because they did the math, and the math doesn't work. Here's something nobody in the financial space talks about, and it might be the most important thing I ever tell you. Your nervous system runs on a budget. You don't have unlimited energy. You don't have unlimited patience. You don't have unlimited capacity to absorb other people's problems and still show up for your own life with clarity. Your brain allocates resources the same way a business does, and when too many departments are over budget, something has to get cut. Dr. Stephen Porges calls this polyvagal theory. Your nervous system has different operating modes. When you feel safe, you're in what he calls the ventral vagal state, social, open, engaged. This is where your best thinking happens, your best planning, your clearest financial decisions. But when you've been drained too many times, when people have taken more than they've given, your nervous system flips into protection mode, shutdown, withdrawal. conservation, not because something is wrong with you, but because your system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, protecting your energy like a finite resource it is.
And here's the financial connection nobody makes. When your nervous system is stuck in survival mode, your prefrontal cortex goes offline. That's the part of your brain responsible for long-term planning, impulse control, and rational financial decisions. Neuroscientists at Yale have shown that chronic stress literally reduces activity in the regions responsible for future-oriented thinking. So that friend who constantly drains you, they're not just costing you energy, they're costing you your ability to think clearly about money. That toxic relationship you can't seem to leave, it's not just hurting your heart, it's hurting your portfolio. That family dynamic that leaves you anxious every Sunday night, it's directly connected to the impulse purchases you make every Monday morning to cope. The people who cut everyone off didn't just remove negative people, they restored the cognitive resources required to build wealth. They gave their prefrontal cortex room to breathe, and that room is worth more than any raise. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable, because the system doesn't want you to see this. Think about how your social life is structured, not emotionally, financially. Every group has an unspoken spending floor, a minimum cost of participation. Maybe it's the restaurants your friends choose. Maybe it's the neighborhood you have to live in to stay close. Maybe it's the car you drive, the clothes you wear, the vacations you take. Nobody ever sat you down and said, you need to spend this much to belong. But the number exists, and you know exactly what it is. Economists call this social consumption pressure. Your spending isn't just determined by what you need or what you want, it's shaped by what the people around you spend. A Federal Reserve study found that when your neighbor buys a new car, the probability that you'll buy a new car increases by 7%, not because you need one, because proximity to spending triggers spending. This is the same mechanism behind every lifestyle trap. You don't upgrade your apartment because yours is too small. You upgrade because your coworker moved to a nicer building and now your place feels inadequate by comparison. You don't buy the new phone because yours is broken. You buy it because everyone in the meeting has one and yours suddenly looks old. Your social circle isn't just your community, it's your consumption blueprint. And here's the part that should terrify you. This pressure compounds in the opposite direction of your money. Every dollar you spend to keep up with your circle is a dollar that isn't compounding in your portfolio. At 10% annual returns, that $9,000 a year in social spending becomes $150,000 over 10 years, $250,000 over 15, $500,000 over 20. You're not just spending money, you're spending your future. The people who cut everyone off and rebuilt a smaller circle, they didn't just change their social life, they changed their consumption blueprint. They surrounded themselves with people whose spending patterns aligned with their financial goals, or they chose solitude over financial performance. Either way, the math changed in their favor. Now, let me show you something fascinating about people who cut others off, because they don't do it randomly. If you're someone who has systematically removed people from your life, you probably noticed something about yourself a long time ago. You see patterns other people miss. That friend who only calls when they need something, you spotted it by month 2. That business partner whose generosity always comes with conditions, you learned their rhythm before the first year was up. That person who love bombs you then disappears when you need them, you saw the full cycle before it completed. A 2023 study in Nature Neuroscience found that people who experienced early emotional stress developed heightened activity in the brain's threat detection regions. In plain terms, your brain got exceptionally good at reading people. Researchers at the University of Iowa found that the frontal lobe, the part responsible for complex social decisions, works overtime in people with this kind of background. You're not paranoid. You're not too sensitive. You are processing social information at a level most people never access. Now, apply that to money. That same pattern recognition that tells you someone is going to drain you emotionally, it's the same skill that tells you a deal is too good to be true, that a business partner is going to underdeliver, that a financial advisor is more interested in their commission than your returns, that a limited time offer is manufactured urgency designed to override your judgment.
The people who cut everyone off aren't just protecting their energy, they're exercising the exact cognitive skill that separates people who build wealth from people who get taken advantage of. Discernment isn't just a social tool, it's a financial superpower. And here's the part that matters most. If you've ever been told you're too guarded, too selective, too hard to get close to, understand what that actually means. It means your pattern recognition is functioning at a level that makes other people uncomfortable. It means you're harder to manipulate. And in a financial system that profits from your impulse, your insecurity, and your desire to belong, being hard to manipulate is the most valuable trait you can have. If that reframes something for you, if you're starting to see your own behavior differently right now, you're exactly the kind of person this channel was built for. Hit subscribe, because the next video is going to take this even deeper. Here's a word most people misunderstand: solitude. Society uses it like a diagnosis: isolated, withdrawn, antisocial. Those words assume something is missing, that you are incomplete without constant connection. But here's what those words actually describe: someone whose calendar isn't controlled by obligation, someone whose spending isn't shaped by peer pressure, someone whose financial decisions are made in clarity, not chaos. Loneliness is the absence of connection you want. Solitude is the presence of peace you chose. And peace has a direct financial return. Let me show you what I mean. When you are not constantly reacting to other people's lives, needs, crises, and expectations, something remarkable happens. You get your attention back. And attention is the real currency of wealth building. Every successful investor, every person who built something from nothing will tell you the same thing. The breakthroughs didn't happen in the crowd, they happened in the quiet. Warren Buffett reads for 6 hours a day. He lives in Omaha, not Manhattan. He famously avoids the noise. Charlie Munger said the big money is not in the buying and selling, but in the waiting. Waiting requires stillness. Stillness requires space. Space requires the willingness to be alone. The people who cut everyone off and chose solitude, they didn't lose their social life. They gained something far more valuable. They gained the cognitive space to think clearly about their future. They stopped reacting and started planning. They stopped performing and started compounding. Not just money, energy, focus, clarity, and time. A study out of Harvard found that the quality of your relationships matters far more than the quantity. The 75 Harvard study of adult development found that it's not about how many people you have in your life, it's about having the right ones. So if your circle is small, but it's full of people who actually see you, who don't drain your energy or inflate your expenses, you're not doing it wrong, you're doing it strategically. Now, I need to be honest with you, because not everyone who cuts people off is operating from strength. There is a real difference between someone who doesn't need the crowd and someone who wants connection desperately but is afraid to admit it. Psychologist Jennifer Crocker studied something called contingencies of self-worth. She found that some people disconnect from others not because they're free, but because they're afraid. Afraid that if they let themselves want closeness and it doesn't go perfectly, it will confirm something they already suspect about themselves, that they don't matter enough, that people won't show up, that the effort won't be matched. So they opt out. Not from confidence, but from protection. And the financial version of this is equally real. Some people avoid investing because they're afraid of losing money. Some people avoid asking for a raise because they're afraid of being told no. Some people keep their world small not because they've calculated the ROI of solitude, but because expansion feels too risky. The isolation looks like strategy, but underneath, it's armor. Here's how you tell the difference. The person operating from strength can engage when they want to. They could go to the dinner, attend the event, invest in the relationship. They just choose not to when the math doesn't add up. The option is available. They're simply not compelled. The person operating from fear can't engage even when they want to. The thought of putting themselves out there, of spending money on connection, of being vulnerable enough to ask for what they need, that triggers anxiety, not peace. The option doesn't feel available. Freedom means having the option and choosing no. Fear means not having the option at all.
If you're in the first group, you understand exactly what this channel is about. If you're in the second group, hear this. You're allowed to invest in connection. You're allowed to let people show up for you. That doesn't make you weak or financially irresponsible. It makes you human. The system trap isn't connection itself. The trap is the belief that you must perform socially to be valid, and that the performance always requires spending money you don't have to prove something you shouldn't need to prove. There's a difference between celebrating from a place of wholeness and spending from a place of emptiness. One is an investment, the other is a transaction. Know which one you're making. Here's what nobody tells you about opting out of the social spending trap. The relationship between your finances and your peace is bi-directional. When you already know your own value, when your sense of worth isn't tied to attendance at someone's party or the price tag on a gift, the urge to perform financially disappears. The psychological need that drives most social spending, the need for validation and proof of connection, gets satisfied by internal security rather than external spending. This creates a cycle that builds on itself. Needing less external validation leads to less social spending. Less social spending leads to more investable income. More investable income leads to more financial security. More financial security leads to more internal peace. More peace reduces the emotional need to perform. Each turn of the cycle strengthens the next. The opposite cycle is equally powerful and equally destructive. Needing validation drives social spending. Social spending creates financial stress. Financial stress increases anxiety. Anxiety deepens the need for validation. The cycle continues until some external event forces a breaking point, a bank account that hits zero, a credit card bill that can't be ignored, a moment where the gap between the life you're performing and the life you can actually afford becomes too wide to pretend it doesn't exist. The people riding the first cycle don't feel deprived, they feel free. The people trapped in the second cycle never feel like they have enough, not because they don't earn enough, but because they're spending to fill a gap that money was never designed to fill. The psychology I've walked you through today isn't about being cold or detached. It's about recognizing that most social anxiety, most lifestyle inflation, most financial stress doesn't come from your income. It comes from a system that taught you your worth is measured in attendance, in gifts, in the number of people who showed up, and in how much you spent to make it happen. The people who cut everyone off didn't lose anything. They just stopped measuring themselves by metrics that were never designed to make them wealthy or whole. They stopped playing a game where the rules are rigged and the prize is temporary. That person I described at the beginning, the one with 4 contacts and a growing portfolio, they're not broken. They just stopped outsourcing their financial future to a social calendar. The other person, the one who spent $9,000 on social obligations and still feels behind, they're not broken either. They just haven't questioned the assumption yet that more people equals more happiness, that bigger circles equal bigger lives, that the volume of your social life reflects the value of your financial decisions. Both paths are available to you right now, regardless of how you've spent every year before this one. If this video found you today, it was not an accident. Leave a comment if you've ever gone quiet, cut people off, and watched your finances get better in the silence. If you want more videos that connect psychology, money, and the systems most people never question, subscribe. The next video might explain even more about you than this one did. Nothing was ever wrong with you. You just stopped paying for a system that was never paying you back.